The last part of the lecture, and we begin with a segment titled The Other Half of the Sky. There have been many powerful, influential women on the African continent. In most domains, women do, as Sankara stated, hold up the other half of the sky. There were women in Liberia, Mass Action for Peace, who ended the Second Liberian Civil War in 2003. Kenyan environmental activist Wangari Maathai won a Nobel Prize in 2004 for contributions to sustainable development. The Synergie des Femmes pour les Victimes des Violences Sexuelles, a network of 35 women's organizations in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, gained passage of a bill recognizing rape as a crime in 2006, and they hold warlords, politicians, and members of the UN accountable for using rape as a weapon of war. And these are just a few examples. In music, women are griots, stars, divas, community organizers, educators, composers, conductors, entrepreneurs, and executives. There's no single or comprehensive way to approach women and music in Africa. Instead, we can explore influential roles women have played through music, hear how voices and stories intersect with issues of politics, economics, and history, and see how they contribute to shaping perceptions of Africa. In 2016, Beninese singer Angelique Kidjo remade a 1980 Talking Heads album called Remain in Light. The original album drew inspiration from Fela Kuti and from the book African Rhythms and African Sensibilities by John Miller Chernoff. At music school in Paris, Kidjo heard this information and mentioned it to a colleague who reportedly said it was too sophisticated to be African. Sound and lyrics reveal clues through which listeners can decipher lessons about history, aesthetics, and culture, if they know what to listen for. So in her album, Kidjo emphasizes the influence of Afrobeat. She also emphasizes the song's Africanness using instruments and processes. On the song Once in a Lifetime, she includes djembes and tama drums, often called talking drums. The song Cross-Eyed and Painless features clave, and then the song Seen and Not Seen uses traditional vocal harmonies sung by Fon women. Call and response is also a foundational element. This is literal in the Once in a Lifetime intro, and it's also metaphorical in the juxtaposition of styles. Even broader still, the album as engaged in a call and response between globally popular genres and what Kidjo hears as their deep African roots. This album reinforces the point that many globally popular genres have undeniably African roots: blues, jazz, rock, funk, R&B, and more. She draws parallels between the often uncredited African sounds at the heart of global popular music and the uncompensated African resources at the heart of global industries. She overlays texts, proverbs, and sounds to reinterpret original songs as critiques of imperialism, neocolonialism, neoliberal capitalism, and environmental destruction. She also imagines alternative futures in the spirit of Afrofuturism. She makes the song Seen and Not Seen into a critique of skin bleaching. This is a deadly practice that women take up in a racist world that conflates whiteness with beauty. And it's a reminder of the impacts of mental colonization. In Blackboard, you will find links to both albums. Check it out. There's a list of songs for you to listen to in both albums just to compare them. So you can hit pause and come back. Okay, next we're going to learn about Nneka. She is a Nigerian singer-songwriter, and her 2012 album, Soul is Heavy, is politically potent for reasons of identity. It exposes portraits that contrast centuries of stereotypes of Africans, and it explores universal human experiences, presents a portrait of the artist's humanity, and in all of its glory, pain, and messiness. So what I would like for you to do is listen to and analyze 3 songs from this album and reflect on whether you do or do not relate to them and how or why. Let's talk a little bit more about the music before you do that. Little of the sound signals African music in a traditional sense. The album draws on reggae, hip-hop, R&B, Afrobeat, and high life styles. Igbo and Hausa sections of Still I Rise, so also African languages. To listeners unfamiliar with these languages, there's a little that's geographically distinct. The music videos that you'll see bring a narrative dimension that makes clear some of the meaningful links to Africa's past and present. In Soul and Heavy, it features abstract depictions of explosions, mass media campaigns, and corruption related to the Niger Delta region. You'll see the Shell Oil logo and the U.S. flag flash in scenes. And one of the lyrics is, "You are stealing money in my country's plight." We also have images of exploited oil workers, student protesters, and Nigerian activists. And these are Isaac Boro, Ken Saro-Wiwa, and Jaja of Apobo. They were all killed. And this song addresses ongoing political and economic exploitation. In the song My Home, we see scenes from rural and urban Nigeria. This shows exploitation of labor and resources, economic power, ambition, corruption, innovation, and violence that define Lagos. Nneka appears as a mine worker, businesswoman, street cleaner, and priestess. This suggests she speaks for a city, a country, or continent. This album, Soul is Heavy, is a reminder that Africanness is not tied to any particular aesthetic, but has to do with global politics. We're almost done with the lecture. Just like for you to hit pause and go watch some videos of Nneka from this album. There are several major points to this section off the record. There are infinite ways to understand the intersection of gender and sound on the continent. Many African musicians do much more than play music. And through music, entrepreneurship, activism, and determination, they hold up the other half of the sky. Women musicians have had an incredible impact beyond albums and videos. Angelique Kidjo is a UNICEF ambassador since 2002. She runs a foundation to empower women through education and employment. Nneka has launched a record label to produce independent music. She works on humanitarian projects in Nigeria and Sierra Leone. Malian Wasulu singer Umo Sangare is a successful musician, but also she owns a popular hotel and acts as a role model for women's economic liberation. She also launched a brand of car, Song, to employ Malians, especially women. Ugandan musician Halima Namakula is the first woman in Uganda to establish a recording studio in 2000. She also built a radio station which promotes female artists, addresses women's issues, and runs educational and vocational trainings to liberate women from sex trafficking and prostitution. Zanzibari-born Tanzanian musician B. Kudude sang Tarab, and she was called the Queen of Tarab. She challenged traditional gender roles in her stage performance and her life, and advocated for women's rights. And lastly, another example of a shiro is Congolese Rumba singer Tshala Mwana, served in a number of political roles during Sankara's government. So in summary, since we took a different angle than just examining instruments and sounds of Africa, because it's so humongous, there's too many cultures, you should decide whether this chapter does justice to African music. It leaves out many important people and practices and raises more questions than it answers. Hopefully, it does provide some resources for thinking about the snarl of issues that lurk behind the term African music. It shows that there is no single right way to understand the continent's music. Here are some guiding principles to help you along the way. Be aware of the idea of Africa. Be aware of how power dynamics influence the stories people tell about the continent. Remember, history influences what we learn. In the music, listen keenly for politics. All stories, including this one, are partial and political. And lastly, always question what is being left out and why. And that concludes the lecture on the music of Sub-Saharan Africa.